Revenge office stories. The university sent me an email threatening to cut my funding if I didn't show up to class. They thought they were threatening some lazy kid coasting on financial aid. What they didn't know is that I had already paid my entire semester's tuition in full with a single check from my own company. They'd already cashed that check. They had my money. This is the story of how I used their own condescending threat, their bloated rulebook, and their own arrogance to get my epic revenge. It's funny how a single piece of paper can change your life. For me, one of those pieces of paper was a check. Not just any check, either. This one was for a 5-figure sum, made out to a massive state university. The memo line just said tuition, but it meant so much more than that. It was proof of 2 years of grinding, of sacrificing sleep, of building a business from nothing in my tiny apartment. At 28, I wasn't your typical student. I wasn't there to party or find myself. I was there for a very specific reason, on my own terms and with my own money. Money from a startup I had poured my life into. Writing that check was a moment of incredible pride. It felt like graduation, a marathon finish line, and a signed funding deal all rolled into one. I hand-delivered it to the bursar's office, feeling like I'd truly earned my place. The university, in turn, wasted no time cashing it. The money vanished from my business account the next day. They had what they wanted, and I naively thought we had a simple, clean deal. I pay you, you give me an education. Turns out, it was nowhere near that simple. My journey to that bursar's office was anything but conventional. I'd done the whole college thing right after high school and got a marketing degree that felt useless the second I graduated. I spent the next few years bouncing between corporate jobs that felt like a slow-motion death. I'd just sit in a cubicle under fluorescent lights, pushing pixels for a company whose mission I couldn't even convincingly recite, feeling a part of my soul just chipping away. The breaking point came during a soul-crushing performance review where my boss said I lacked proactive initiative because I wasn't going to the optional weekend team-building brunches. That night, I went home and started coding. Well, coding is a generous word. It was more like wrestling with website templates and watching endless tutorials. My idea was simple: a platform connecting local artisans with boutique hotels looking for unique decor. After a year of relentless work, it started to take off. I quit my job. The business was growing, but I knew I had gaps in my knowledge. My old marketing degree was from the pre-social media era, and I was hitting a wall. So I decided to go back to school, but this time with a purpose. I wasn't getting a whole new degree. I was going to surgically extract the knowledge I needed by enrolling as a non-degree student in a few high-level courses. The university itself was a character in this story. It was one of those places that prided itself on history and prestige, which really meant it was drowning in a century of bureaucracy. It was a kingdom of paperwork, a fortress of forms. Getting enrolled was a nightmare of decade-old transcripts and essays on my educational goals. But I was determined. I jumped through their hoops, filled out their forms, and finally I was in. I chose my classes carefully: advanced data mining, algorithmic marketing, and a grad-level seminar on e-commerce logistics. I wasn't interested in campus life. I was a 28-year-old business owner, not a 19-year-old freshman. My plan was to go to the lectures that mattered, soak up the info, and apply it directly to my business. Then the bill came. It was steep, but I'd planned for this. It was a business expense, an investment. I wrote the check, walked it into the bursar's office, and felt like our deal was done. And for a few weeks it worked. The logistics seminar was brilliant. I was learning things on a Tuesday that were making my company money by Thursday. But the other 2 classes, they were a different story. The data mining professor hadn't updated his curriculum since the dawn of the internet. The algorithmic marketing class was even worse. A 300-person lecture where the professor just read, word for word, from a textbook I'd already read. Attending was a colossal waste of my time. And my time was literally money. So I made an executive decision. I'd stop going to the 2 useless classes and just ace the finals. I'd keep going to the 1 valuable seminar. I was a paying customer, choosing to consume the part of the product that was worthwhile. In business, that's logical. In academia, it was apparently heresy. That's when the email arrived. The subject line was dripping with passive aggression, attendance, and financial aid status. It wasn't from a professor. It was from the faceless, bureaucratic office of the registrar. I opened it. The text was cold, impersonal, and unbelievably condescending. It said, "Dear student, our records indicate a pattern of non-attendance. Please be advised that consistent attendance is a condition of enrollment. Failure to attend classes may be interpreted as an unofficial withdrawal. As per university policy and federal regulations, we are required to verify attendance for the disbursement of financial aid. Continued non-attendance will result in administrative action, which may include the cancellation of your financial aid awards. You will be held financially responsible for any outstanding tuition and fees." I read it twice. A hot flush of anger crept up my neck. They thought I was some kid living off grants. They were threatening to take away financial aid I didn't have, then send me a bill for tuition I had already paid. They were holding 5 figures of my hard-earned money and had the nerve to send me a form letter assuming I was a deadbeat. The insult wasn't just the words, it was the assumption. The whole system saw the student as an irresponsible child and the university as the parent enforcer. But none of that applied to me. I was the customer. I was funding this whole transaction, and they had just treated me like a delinquent. They had no idea who they were dealing with. They saw a student number and an empty seat. They didn't see the entrepreneur who was up until 3 a.m. packing orders. And in that moment, the anger cooled and was replaced by a cold, calculated sense of purpose. This wasn't just an insult anymore. This was an opportunity. For a solid hour, I just stared at that email. The anger was a buzzing under my skin. "Dear student," not my name. Unofficial withdrawal. A bureaucratic way of saying, "We think you're ditching." The part that really got me was the threat about financial aid. It was so smug. They thought they could snap their fingers and pull the financial rug out from under me. It was a power play, plain and simple, designed to scare an 18-year-old. But they weren't dealing with an 18-year-old. My first instinct was to fire back an angry all-caps email. But I stopped myself. What would that do? I'd be dismissed as an emotional student, and they'd still have my money. No. Revenge, like business, requires strategy. You have to understand the system better than your opponent does. The most effective way to deal with a faceless bureaucracy isn't to yell at it. It's to use its own rules against it. I forced myself to read their email again, but this time like a legal document. Failure to attend, interpreted as an unofficial withdrawal. Continued non-attendance will result in administrative action. They were telling me, if you do X, we will do Y. They expected me to be scared of Y. But what if I wasn't? What if I welcomed it? A wild idea started to form. They were threatening to kick me out. What if I let them? I knew that if I withdrew this late in the semester, I'd get a W on my transcript and, crucially, 0 refund. The deadline for any kind of partial refund had passed 2 weeks ago. The house always wins. But this wasn't a normal withdrawal. They called it an administrative withdrawal initiated by them. Was that different? It had to be. There had to be a policy for it somewhere. So my mission began. I went to the university's labyrinth of a website and found my target, the 427-page student handbook, a single monstrous PDF. As it downloaded, I felt a surge of adrenaline. This was my battleground. This document was their Bible, and I was going to find an exploit. I opened the PDF and hit Ctrl+F, attendance. 112 results. Then I found it, a section titled Administrative Withdrawal for Non-Attendance. It said the registrar's office may initiate a withdrawal for students who miss 2 or more consecutive weeks. This was the mechanism the email was threatening. Okay, step 1 confirmed. They can kick me out. Now for the money. I searched the handbook for refund. 243 results. I scrolled through pages of legalese designed to discourage anyone from reading it. But I was a woman on a mission. I kept digging, cross-referencing, administrative withdrawal, and refund. And then, buried on page 287, in a subsection of a subsection, I found the Holy Grail. It was a single, beautiful paragraph about tuition adjustments for university-initiated withdrawals. It said that in such an event, a student's tuition would be subject to a prorated refund based on the withdrawal date. My heart started pounding. I found the refund schedule a few pages later. It was a simple table. Week 1, 100%. Week 2, 75%. Week 3, 50%. Week 4, 25%. After that, 0. I checked my calendar. We were in week 3. The threat email had landed in my inbox at the very start of week 3. If they processed my withdrawal now, I would be contractually entitled to a 50% refund for those 2 classes. A refund I could never have gotten by withdrawing myself. In their attempt to threaten me, they had accidentally handed me the key to getting thousands of dollars back. Their condescending, automated threat was the very thing that would trigger it. A wide grin spread across my face. The plan was set. I wouldn't reply with anger, but with polite, bureaucratic language. I would, in essence, accept their threat. Then I'd do nothing and let their system work. When they failed to process the refund correctly, I would be ready with my evidence. It was time to craft the weapon. Subject: attendance and financial aid status. Dear Office of the Registrar, thank you for your email. This serves as confirmation that I have indeed ceased attendance in course name 1 and course name 2. I have reviewed the university policies you referenced. I understand that my continued non-attendance will result in administrative action being taken by the university. Please proceed according to standard university procedure. Sincerely, my name, my student ID number. It was polite, it was cooperative, and it was a trap. As a final touch, I attached a screenshot of the cash check from my bank account. The digital equivalent of looking them in the eye and saying, "Your move." I hit send. After I sent that email, a strange calm washed over me. The ball was in their court. I continued going to my one useful seminar and running my business. Every day, I checked my student account portal waiting. 3 days later, I got a reply. Not the formal withdrawal notice I expected, but a short, confused email from a low-level administrator named Brenda. Dear, my name, thank you for your reply. This email is just a standard notification. We urge you to speak with your professors and resume attendance. I had to laugh. Brenda was trying to de-escalate. She hadn't actually understood my email. Her script was for dealing with panicked students, not someone who calmly said, "Okay, do it." It was time for phase 2. I replied to Brenda with excruciating politeness. Dear Brenda, thank you. However, as stated in my previous email, and as per university policy, my documented non-attendance requires the initiation of an administrative withdrawal. The university handbook is quite clear on this. Could you please let me know the timeline for this process? I attached the highlighted pages from the student handbook PDF. I was doing her job for her. This time, the response was much faster. An hour later, my phone rang. State University. I answered in my most professional voice. The man introduced himself as Mr. Henderson from the bursar's office. He did not sound happy. Yes, Ms., my name. I'm calling about an email exchange. There seems to be some confusion on your part. Oh, I said, keeping my voice light. I don't believe I'm confused. The policy seems quite straightforward. That policy, he sighed, is primarily for students on financial aid. It's an attendance verification rule. It doesn't really apply to you. This was the moment. The moment they try to tell you the rules don't mean what they say. I was ready. I'm afraid I have to disagree, Mr. Henderson, I said calmly. I'm looking at it right now. Page 287. Tuition adjustments for university-initiated withdrawals. It makes no distinction about the source of payment. It just says a student's tuition will be refunded. My tuition was paid. The university is initiating the withdrawal. Where's the confusion? Long silence on the other end. I could hear papers rustling. He was looking it up. He was realizing I had done my homework. Well, it's a highly unusual interpretation of the policy, he stammered. It's not an interpretation, I countered, my voice firm now. It's just reading the words as written. Your office sent me an email threatening administrative action. Your handbook defines that action and its financial consequences. I simply accepted those terms. Is the student handbook not a binding document? That was the kill shot. He was sputtering. No, of course it is, but look, why don't you just withdraw yourself online? I could, I said, but the deadline for a partial refund for that passed weeks ago. That would mean I forfeit the money. An administrative withdrawal, however, which your office set in motion, entitles me to a 50% refund, since we're in the third week. I'm just following the path the university presented to me. I could almost hear his brain breaking. He was trapped. If they didn't withdraw me, they'd be ignoring their own policy. If they did withdraw me, they had to give me thousands of dollars back. I will have to look into this, he said, completely defeated. He hung up. I leaned back in my chair, a huge smile spreading across my face. I had won. 2 days later, a formal email arrived. You have been administratively withdrawn from Course Name 1 and Course Name 2. An adjustment has been made to your student account. A refund check will be mailed. I logged into my student portal, and there it was, a beautiful, glorious new line item. Tuition refund, followed by a number that was exactly 50% of the tuition for those 2 classes. About a week later, a check from the university arrived in my mailbox. It felt even better than earning the money in the first place. This wasn't just profit. This was justice. I heard later that the university had updated its student handbook the next semester. The section on administrative withdrawal refunds now specified it only applied within the first 2 weeks. They closed the loophole. They learned their lesson. They thought they were teaching me a lesson about showing up. Instead, I taught them a multi-thousand-dollar lesson about paying attention to their own rules and about the danger of underestimating the person who's paying the bills. So, what do you think? Was this the ultimate case of malicious compliance? Or did I take it too far? Let me know in the comments. I read all of them. And if you enjoyed this story, hit that subscribe button for more tales of beating the system. At the end of the day, this was about more than just the money. It was about respect. The university system is designed to be impersonal, to treat everyone like a number. They tried to put me in a box I didn't fit into, and in the process, they showed me how to break out of it and take my money with me. It's a good reminder that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is understand the rules better than the people who wrote them. Thanks for watching.